Hello and welcome once again to the RC Racing TV build of the DeAgostini Model Space Kyosho Hummer H1. This time we're going to be building steps 5 and also step 6. So we've already built quite a few pieces already. We've got the beginnings of the drivetrain already built with the spur gear and the spur gear hub. And this time we're starting with a couple of parts bags that feature one of the differentials. So we're going to start with step 5 and just move step 6 out of the way for the moment. And we'll just cut this open. This step, the instructions recommend to use a toothpick, which we've got here. This will be used to apply some grease to the inside of the diff case, and also a pair of tweezers. And this will just make it a little bit easier to put the some of the washers and the pins in place. So we'll just set those aside just for now, and we'll just get all the parts out of parts bag number 5. So what we've got here is we've got a diff case, or differential case, and we're going to be putting, we've got bearings, or we've got a bearing, we have a couple of the internal diff gear pieces, and some more planetary gears that go inside. These will be slipping over this piece, so you'll see when we get it in there. And here we've got the bearing, an O-ring seal, a washer, and a pin for the drive shaft. And this is a little bit interesting. This is just a bag of grease. So let's just get all these open, and we'll get started with the build. Okay, so we are ready to go. We've got all the parts laid out on one of the spare plastic bags that came in one of the earlier steps, and we're ready to go. So the first thing is to just take your diff case, and you can see here it's nice sturdy plastic. You've got 4 screw holes that we're going to be installing the gear, and the next step is going to go over that. And the first step that we're going to be doing is we're going to take this bearing, we're just going to press it right into place, just like that, nice and smooth, just as a bearing should be. And then we're going to just set that down for a second, and we're going to cut a very small bit of the corner off the end there of this grease bag. I'm just going to very carefully push it in. Now if you have some RC grease at home, that's fine, you can use that as well. This is just a thick general purpose grease that comes with the kit, so just makes it very handy if you don't have that sort of thing. And we're just going to apply it to the inside here where you see the rim. Get a better view of it. See that rim right there? We're just going to put this grease just on that inner rim. As you can see, you don't have to be perfectly exact with it. Obviously, we do want to get it where it needs to be, but it doesn't need to be perfectly placed. So it doesn't matter if it smears a little bit, because all these metal bits inside will need to have grease on them anyway. So there we go. That's what I mean. It's you just need to make sure that the inner lip there has plenty of grease on it. We're just going to set that down now, and then we're going to get our little grease tube effectively, and just put a bit of grease on the outside of the diff shaft here. Might be a little bit too much, but again, it's not a big deal if you apply just a little bit too much. So there we go. Good amount of grease on there. And then we're going to slide that into place, just like that, and push it all the way in, just like that. Okay? And then you're going to see this diff shaft, or the outdrive, as it's commonly called, or diff cup, comes into the side there, inside the diff case, and then we're going to put that orange O-ring on top. Just going to use the toothpick just to press it down, just so our fingers don't get too dirty. And you see we're pressing it down into place inside that little lip. You want to make sure you don't poke too hard. We're just pressing it into place. And then we're getting the washer. It's a very thin washer. Okay. And we're just sliding that over the top. And then we're just pushing that down as well. So the O-ring is literally a seal to keep the grease in and the dirt out of the diff case. And now we're going to take the pin, and this is where the tweezers come in really handy, especially if you have something like this, these sort of L-shaped tweezers. And we're just going to grab that. I'm going to find the hole. You can just see it there inside the diff case. See the hole there. Oop. See how easy that is to pop out. Just need a light touch on it. I was probably pressing it too much. And then we're going to carefully slide that into place. Sorry, make sure we get that on screen. There we go. And so you can see that pin is in place now. Okay? Now we're going to get more of the grease on the end of the toothpick. Squeeze it out a bit, because you want a good amount in there. Because remember, all this metal on metal, we need to make sure it's nicely lubricated with plenty of grease here. So we've got about that much on there. We're going to get one of these gears, this big one. You see how's that slot in there? So it matches up with that pin. And then we're just going to put that on top. Just spin it a bit just to make sure it's seated on there properly. It should press all the way down, so you may not have a good seal on that. You see how that black piece of metal should be flush with the silver piece. So we're just going to pull it out. See if we can get it out here. There we go. Yeah, you see how it was lined up properly, but the pin had come out of position slightly. So that grease helps keep it in place. So again, we're going to line up pieces there, and now you see that's how it's supposed to look, okay, before we do the next step, which is getting the two remaining gears from the step 5 bag, these two, and we're going to put them on this cross shaft here. I'm going to make it look like that just a bit. And obviously we're going to have a little space in between them. And then we're going to put them right there inside the diff case, and then just spread the gears so that the shaft goes as far down as it can. And then we're going to put a good amount of grease across the shafts and the gears. Make sure we get it good amount everywhere. And that's step 5 completed. And so you can see if that shaft holds in place, you can see how the differential works. See all the gears turning inside. It's the magic of differentials. So we're just going to set this down, set it aside, and move on to step 6. Okay, so step 6. Then this looks like it's the rest of the differential case to finish off our work. And so what we're going to do is just dive straight in. So we've got the other side of the diff case. So you can see where the screws are going to go. We've got some screws, obviously 5 screws, that's 4 to close off the diff case, plus another that we'll see. The other diff shaft, or diff output shaft, or drive cup, or whatever you want to call it. Another bearing, O-ring seal, pin, and washer. And the ring gear that goes on the outside of the diff case, and the internal, the final internal gear. So we're just going to cut these open and get started. Okay, and now that we've got all the parts taken out of the bags, I'm just going to carry on with step 6. So the first one, just like in step 5, is to take the bearing and put it on the outside of this, the differential cover. You see there, press it down nice and firm so it's flush with the outer edge of that plastic piece. And now, once again, following pretty much the same thing that we did in step 5, I'm going to get some grease on the end of the toothpick and just apply it on this inside edge here. Like so. Then we're just going to set that down for a second and get the grease again and just dab it on the outside, on the shaft of the of this diff out drive. And then we're going to push that through so it's nice and pushed right in there. And then same thing again. I'm going to push that in, put the O-ring over, push the O-ring in, and then the washer on top. You don't really need the tweezers for this one, but you see where the pin is going to go. And then we're going to get the grease and just squeeze it in. That helps get lubrication all over there and holds the pin in place. Then we're just going to line up the gear. And there we go. So you make sure that's nice and flush there. And the next step is we're going to get the diff case that we assembled in step 5, and basically just use just about all of this grease and just really fill that up. Put a large amount of the grease in there. And then we're going to get the cover that we've just assembled, and we're going to put that right over so that the holes line up with the cover of the diff case in place. We're going to get the ring gear, which is this piece here. I'm going to put it over so that the holes, again, so that they line up. Okay, and then we've got the only bits left remaining for this step are these screws. Looks like we have a spare one just in case you drop one and lose it, which is nice and handy because those things do happen. So we're going to get one of the screws, and we're going to get good quality screwdriver and just start putting these in, but we're not going to tighten them all the way down just yet. So you'll notice that I'm tightening these down. Well, I've put this one in first, and then this one, and then I'm going to do that one, and then that one. It's called the star pattern. So if you've worked on cars or engines or RC cars or anything like that yourself, or you know someone who have, they may have told you about this. It's the same thing as like tightening the wheel on your car. You don't do it all the way around like in a circle. You do it in a star pattern. So top left, top right, bottom left, top right, bottom left. Well, you know what I mean. So just going to put these in place. Okay, so now I've got the 4 screws, almost all of them in. And I've also went and gotten the correct size screw. This is a number 1 screwdriver. This is a number 2. You can see the size. Obviously, it's quite a big difference. So making sure you have the right size screwdriver is very important. So now this is the last screw that we're putting in. And we're tightening it in all the way. And remember, we're going to do this in the star fashion. So we've tightened this one, and now we're going to tighten this one. And now we're going to tighten this top left one. And now the bottom right screw. It's the final screw. Right. So what that does, again, is that it distributes the forces that we're pushing down with this ring gear. Instead of spreading it around so that it possibly, the casing possibly becomes misshapen, we're evenly distributing it down this way and then down that way. Hopefully that makes sense. So now we're just going to check the diff action, and that's nice. It's really good. So what that does is it basically acts as literally a limited slip differential, just like you have in your road car, so that the inner wheel can turn slower, or I should say the outer wheel that's traveling around a corner can turn slower or faster than the inner wheel, because it has more distance to go. So anyway, read up on that. It's quite an interesting thing if you're an engineering geek. But anyway, that's that for step 5 and 6 of the DeAgostini Model Space Kyosho Hummer H1 build here on RC Racing TV. Keep watching for all the following steps.